Welcome everyone. My name is Rod Caspers. It's a real privilege to get to spend some time with you today. And even though we're not face to face, it is my hope that you will kind of treat this as a conversation, pretty casual conversation, but I hope it includes some things that will make you stop and think, evaluate some of the things you've done in the past and maybe some of the work you will do in the future. I am just going to share some ideas that I think are fairly practical, actually very practical, about the UIL 1 Act. Okay, so let's get started. My association with UIL goes way, way back. I started as a director. I taught at 2 different high schools in Austin, and each of the years I was teaching, I directed a UIL play. Then I transitioned into adjudicating, and I'm not going to do the math, I'll let you do that, but I've been adjudicating for just shy of 40 years, a long time, okay? So when I was asked to do this workshop, I thought, what's the most maybe practical thing I have to offer? And I'm actually in the process of downsizing. And so I went back through a lot of my notes, and for some reason I've kept a lot of my critique notes in case directors would call me or I needed to refer to them somehow. And I just started looking through and finding the top 5, 6, 7 notes that I consistently gave over the years and that I consistently give right now. So what I thought I'd do today is just share those kind of, it's not like a late night top 10 thing. It's not that exciting, but I'm going to share 5 different kind of areas from which most of my critique notes or adjudication notes come from. I so believe in the UIL, both the UIL 1 Act and then the greater work that the UIL does for educational theater in Texas. I think it does great things for young artists, young theater artists, both on and off stage. But I think it even does more for just helping develop compassionate people, good humans. And so I value and treasure my time spent with the UIL and my experience gained from the UIL. And hopefully my comments today will reflect that. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about are moments that work. Now, this may seem like a funny note to give you, but the vast majority of the notes that I found in my critique notes are moments in the plays that I've watched that really worked. Okay, it's a very positive thing. And I think if you could look at an adjudicator's notes, everybody does it differently. But certainly if you could look at my notes, the vast majority of my notes are very positive. Okay, I often, it's not a joke, it's the truth. I often tell people, when they ask me where I got my theater training, I go, I can tell in schools and everything, but I'll say most of my training has come from adjudicating the UIL 1 Act play contest. It's the most phenomenal training I think that anybody could experience. And that's a tribute to the directors. Hopefully some directors are watching, and to the student actors. Okay, so most of the time in my critiques, I am pointing out moments that resonated to me or that worked or that really seemed clear and clean and rich. And a lot of that had to do with the composition on stage, the placement. A lot of that had to do with the fact that I could hear everything in that moment. A lot of it had to do with the timing. A lot of it had to do with the commitment to character. A lot of it had to do with, was there pressuring happening? Were the actors listening? Were the characters listening to each other? All of those things seem to be in focus. And so I just wanted to start out by saying, you know, most of my notes when I give a critique are moments that worked. And what I've tried to do over the years is share those with casts so that directors and actors could go away and say, what was going on at that moment? Why did he think that really worked? Okay? Because I think if you know which moments work, you can start to replicate your clarity or your richness or the quality of the moments can become consistent. I will say I also found a number of times where I've said, now this particular moment seemed less clear. So again, I really think a play is made up of moments. It's just a series of moments, if you will. And I think if you can isolate moments, especially moments that are very positive, and the UIL One Act competition is filled with those moments. I feel so fortunate to get to watch. But if you can know what works and then really explore it, it's my hope that you know, you'll be able to recreate many, many more moments exactly like that. All right, moving on. Number 2, I often hear myself giving a note about developing a stronger ground plan, and maybe more important than that, using the ground plan. What do I mean? So often, I will watch a play, especially early on in the contest. Maybe it's a workshop or maybe it's the first performance in the contest setting. And actors will come on stage and they'll stand downstage or in front of furniture that's been provided them by their director. So there's been a ground plan created, but the actors aren't using it. They're not living in it. Okay. When I first thought about doing this workshop, I thought, gosh, I should do a thing about using the ground plan because it seems like that's a critique I give a lot. And I really thought about calling this "Use the Damn Furniture," but I broadened my remarks a bit. So I made this just one section. But it's just so important that you use what's been created for you, okay? So let's just do a little virtual activity here. I have a question for you. Just consider this. What do you do when you arrive home after a long day at school? You enter your house, and then what do? Think about that. It's been a long day. You got up early, you went in. It's been a hard day. You've just gotten home. You've gotten inside your house, and what do? I'll bet a lot of money that you don't walk to the middle of the living room and stand. I'll bet you don't walk to the middle of the kitchen and just stand. And if you get to your bedroom, I bet you don't just stand apart from any chairs or bed or anything like that. Okay? I would venture a guess you drop your bags, your backpack, you either slouch against the kitchen counter or lean against the refrigerator as you're getting something out to eat. You might flop down on the sofa. You might flop down on your bed, but you get in there and you use the furniture, okay? That's what you should do as a character. That's what your character should do, okay? Don't allow your character, unless your director really directs you this way, to just stand apart from everything that's provided, okay? Now, just a couple other things to consider, and you could actually do these things on stage as a exercise. Think about it's a first day of school. You have a class that you've never been in that classroom before, and you enter. What do? You've never been in that classroom. You don't know the teacher. You've entered the first day. What do you do with the desks or the tables or everything that's around you? Compare that to if it's the 10th week of school and you enter that classroom and you've been in there every day for 10 weeks. What's your behavior then? What do you do with the desks or the furniture or the beanbag chairs or whatever it is that's in that classroom? Again, depending on what the character brings in to the room, depending on what you bring into the room, your experience with that environment, how comfortable that space is to you, but you use the environment. So again, I don't need to go belabor the point. I just want to make sure that you really give that some thought, okay? Use what you're given. Use what you're given. Now, I want to look at a couple pictures of what I consider a pretty strong ground plan, as well as actors really using that ground plan in a really good way. Take a look at this, okay? This is from a production of Ordinary People. I directed it years and years ago. I just want you to look at all the ways these actors are literally in, on top, below the furniture that they've been provided. And it won't always be furniture, it may be levels, it may be props, hand props, but look at how these people are literally tied into the ground plan. Even these guys down here, I would consider really tied down into the ground plan. There's only two people standing out in the open, and look at how their focus ties them in as well. All right? So if you're an actor and you're playing a character and you enter and you come into a space like this, how would you use that? These guys are in their locker, their swim locker room. Okay, they're very comfortable with each other and with that environment. This young man is at his psychiatrist's office, probably less comfortable, but this isn't the first time he's been there. He's been there numerous times now, so he feels comfortable enough to get down. Okay? Directors, I want to point out a few things about the ground plan because it's just really important that you use this. Notice there are various planes across this, various planes across the stage. There's an upstage plane, there's a mid-stage plane, and then this chair and ottoman are in the downstage plane. If everything was mid-stage and you had your actors tie into it, this composition would be very, very flat. So again, use the full stage, use the planes, tie down your corners, okay? If this chair wasn't down here, it'd be a little awkward for somebody to just walk down here and stand. You see what happens when you put a hand prop or a hand costume prop on the floor, it extends your ground plan. Let's look at a couple other things. Look, things are on an angle. There are different levels, and then when the actors use them accordingly, we get multiple levels going. Okay? So enough about that. I just want to make sure that you're using, first of all, you're creating a ground plan that provides that obstacle course in which the play can be played, the journeys can be taken, and then that you're allowing actors, you're giving them a chance to really learn how to use that space and explore that space, okay? It will help you in your staging so much. I want to talk about maybe a couple exercises that might help actors learn to use the ground plan better too. First thing, I would just ask your actors what makes a strong composition. Let's look at a couple things here. Take a look at this. This is a painting. And look at it has many of the same things that that picture or that composition from Ordinary People. We've got planes, upstage, if we consider this on a stage, mid stage and downstage. Things are on an angle. We've got levels going, multiple levels. We've got really good focus right here. Part of this is because she's turned out a little bit. We see more of her front than anybody else. But we also see, if I look away from her, I'm directed right back to her. So we've got kind of like the perfect audience here. So I would look at a series of paintings or stage compositions and have your students make a list of what makes a strong composition. This is very different. You've still got levels, you've got planes, it's in a condensed area. We're missing this young man's face back here. We maybe need to correct that. But create a list of strong compositional elements. Here's another thing we could pull from. Look at the planes, look at the levels, look at the focus. Even though this is a choir piece, there are stools that help create kind of an obstacle course around which they have to move. One more. This is a very different kind of composition. Here we have no ground plan really. So the dancers and singers almost become the ground plan. And look at the focus with line, okay? So again, create a list. I would even get it up in the classroom. Create a list of strong, or elements of strong compositions. Now, let's have the actors, students, use those elements, learn about those elements, practice with them. Have one actor just go to the middle of the stage or the middle of the room, or the middle of your ground plan if you're working on a specific play. And then one by one, have other characters, have other actors create a composition off of him or around him or her that explore all those different elements we just talked about. Levels, angles, focus, line, okay? So then have another student start the composition and then have others build on one at a time. Sometimes I give a theme for a composition. I may say, I want to create a picture that has all of these elements in it that communicates cooperation. I want to create a composition that communicates dissent. You could come up with any number of things. And we build these things and then we critique what elements are part of our composition. You might take some photographs of them and prop them up, okay? Then a little more advanced variation of this is I will find some music that has a steady beat. And I will say, okay, we're gonna build a composition off, I'll pick a student, off Julie. And here's the beat. And everybody gets the beat to that music. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and we've got the music playing in the background, and I'll say, okay, you're gonna have 8 counts. We're gonna do this all together, and you're gonna create a composition around Julie. 1, 2, 8 counts, go. And here go the students. 1, 2, they're moving into place. They're building a composition with the elements you listed. Stop, 2, or hold, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm going to pick a student, have them move out an 8. 1, to a different part of the space. And now we're all going to build another picture around them. And here we go, all of us. Move, 2, you got 8 counts. 4, 5, 6, 7, and we're there. And you get the idea. So I do a lot of work with just actors helping me create strong compositions, because it just makes the staging process so much easier, so much more fun. And I want the actor to tell his story or her story physically. So summing up, strong ground plan many directing books have rules on ground plans. I'm a Fran Hodge child, and I carry his book with me every time I direct. Every time I'm on the road direct, I have it. I think I'm still not sure of what everything means in that book, even though I've lived with it for over 40 years. But it's amazing as far as teaching, how to build a really good ground plan. All right, we need to move on. The third area where a lot of my notes come from in my critiques have to do with entrances. What are you bringing on stage? And I mean, everything you can think about fits into that. What are you bringing on stage? What's happened to your character right before they enter? Where are they coming from? Was it a happy place? Was it a place of sadness? And I don't just mean the location. I mean their physical and psychological and emotional self. Were they in a hurry? Did they not want to enter the stage or the house or wherever it is? What do you bring on stage? Okay? You must, actors, this isn't the director's job. This is your job. You must consider everything that your actor is bringing on. And sometimes it's a prop. They're bringing on a prop, but they may be bringing on a really heavy prop and they have a really heavy heart, and that should help you figure this, how your entrance is. Or they're bringing on a really heavy prop, but they're really excited. That's a different kind of entrance. Or they're trying to escape somebody. Somebody's chasing them and they're rushing in maybe to hide. So you can't just come on and say your line and yeah, I know when I come on and I know where I come on. If that's how you're going to enter, maybe you shouldn't come on. I just want to know, when I'm watching a play, what are you bringing on stage? Okay, I don't need to say a lot more about that. I think it's clear, but I think it's often forgotten. Now, when a character comes on stage, they don't know what somebody's going to say to them. They don't even know if anybody's going to be in the house sometimes. So they've got to bring their story on and then receive the pressure that's applied by other characters and then react. Okay? I think your reaction and your sort of incorporation into the scene is going to be much clearer and much more believable if you bring on everything that's happened to you off stage. I'm sure your directors have talked about this. I want you to give it some thought so they don't have to talk all the time about this, because you can do that yourself. I'm not going to talk about exits, but it's the same thing. What happened in the scene? What are you taking off the stage with you? The scene's only over in our minds, kind of in that moment. Okay? I made a mistake. The scene isn't over in our mind. That moment is over, but if your exit has communicated all that you're taking off, I'm still carrying that with me in my mind, and that's something I definitely want to take with me. So entrances and exits, think about it. Tell your story. Use the ground plan when you enter. All these things just build upon each other. Okay, moving on quickly. Actually, I skipped one. Sorry about that. This is a short one, but maybe, I don't know. It's very important. Many of my notes have to do with, I can't hear you. I can't understand you. Okay? Now, back to what I said first. When I tell a cast all the moments that really worked, I guarantee you, I could probably hear and understand everything in that moment. You might have a perfect moment. It's beautifully staged. It's lit well. There's focus, all this. And then I can't understand or hear what the person is saying, and I'll sit up and I'll struggle to hear, and I will come out of your story. So there are so many things to do, and I know a lot of you work on this, but actors, I'm going to encourage you not to just muddle through these each day. Let's get through these articulation exercises or these projection exercises, and then we'll get to really rehearsing. No, rehearsal, you've got to incorporate that into your rehearsal so that it really pays off, because it never works to just say, okay, we really have to articulate today. You can't just switch that on and off. So whatever your director is having you do, really invest yourself physically, emotionally, vocally in that. Here's a couple other things. Be careful of delivering lines upstage. Unless your director positions you that way, remember where the audience is. Also, be careful of delivering too many lines in profile. What do I mean? Facing the side of the stage. Even if you're yelling at somebody off stage, you've got to toss it out more to the audience. Those are two things that always hinder us hearing and understanding young actors. Facing upstage or delivering too much to the side. So be careful. But make sure that we can hear you and that we can understand you. All right, number 5. This is huge. This is huge. I find this throughout my notes. Where was everybody? By that I mean characters. Where were all the characters at the end of each scene? How did they feel? How did they look? What have they discovered? Where did each character end up? And I often put it in a question. What toll did that scene take on your character? What toll did your character pay by playing that scene? Okay, let me talk a little bit more about this. If you bring your story onto the stage, and then you're really open and listen and receive the pressure that everybody is pushing at you on stage, really listen to what's happening, to what's being said to you, there's probably some sort of discovery made, decision made. You should end up in a different place than where you started the scene. And what often happens is ends of scenes get rushed because we're a little worried about going over time. And so we've made it through the scene and we're getting to the transition and we go and we go. But if I don't see where every character has ended up, you didn't even need to do that scene. Okay? So I think it's really important, directors and actors, that you take time with the ends of scenes, even if it's an emergency, even if there's urgency. I almost think the end of the scene has to be kind of like a bookmark on my mind and my heart. Wow, all that happened and that's how he felt. Okay, all that happened, but he still has that question. It's really important that we see your characters reacting, listening and reacting to every moment in the scene to get them to where they are at the end. Now, some of you might think, well, I just got cast in the chorus of The Music Man and nothing really happens. I'm not that important. I know I'm in You Got Trouble, My Friend, that song that the Harold Hill sings, but I don't really have to do much prep work for this. And I say that's bull, okay? My challenge to you is, why did the writer include you in that scene? Who are you in that scene? What story do you bring on at the beginning of that scene? Do you like this stranger in your town? What attitude do you have? He's climbing on the statue in the park. Do you let your kids climb on the statue? He's criticizing your, wait, my son is like what he's saying. We do have trouble. Do I like that pool? I don't know. moment by moment, I need to see that character move from this point at the beginning of the scene to this point at the end. Because I think at the end, you're all singing, "You got trouble, my friend," and you believe it. We have to see all that happen, and then we have to see that by the end of that scene, you really feel there's trouble, and that's going to impact the way you go out. Or maybe you feel there isn't trouble, and that sets you apart from the rest of the town. But I've got to know where you end up at the end of that scene, okay? Whether you're playing a lead or whether you're playing a chorus part that you don't feel is very important. You were put in that play, you were included in that play for a reason. So figure it out and then play that, okay? Ends of scene are just vitally important. Okay, I want to share one more point here. And I call this kind of a bonus. What have you learned? How have you changed? And this is not only your character, but this is more about you as an actor, you as a human being, okay? Now, directors, I often end a critique, and it's interesting, I think as I've gotten older, it kind of looked that way when I looked through some of these old critique sheets. I often end my critique with what's the theme of your play, and make sure your students know that and make sure they live that. What do I mean? We often say we do theater to change the world, okay? We want to challenge a current way of thinking. We want to have people look at a situation or a challenge we're facing in a new and different way. We may want to just give the people who are coming to the play a break for the evening. So it's a comedy. It's meant to give them a break from their daily lives. But we're doing this story for a reason. There's a major truth, as I call it. There's a major theme. I also hear often that theater changes the world, okay? And here's my feeling. Those of us that get to be part of a theater production, part of doing the play, I mean, we've actually gotten to put on those other people's shoes. We've actually walked a mile in their clothes. So if anybody should change, those of us who have the good fortune of doing plays should celebrate more change and embrace more change than the audience, certainly, because we've had time to really work with this idea or these ideas and these characters. So please, directors and students, I would urge you to spend much more time with the theme and how that ties into our daily lives, okay? Because that's going to stick with you no matter what awards you got or didn't get at the UIL. But you can take that major truth and incorporate it into your life and take that award, if you will, with you for the rest of your life. So let me close this section with this. I read every morning, and if you don't have this book, I would encourage you to get it. It's called The Daily Stoic, okay? And you were each day given a passage by an ancient Stoic, and then you're kind of given a modern interpretation of it. And I want to read you the one that I came across the other morning. They're separated by the days of the year. Just take a listen. Many school teachers teach the Odyssey all wrong. They teach the dates. They debate whether Homer was really the author or not, whether he was blind. They explain the oral tradition. They tell students what a cyclops is or how the Trojan horse worked. Seneca's advice to someone studying the classics is to forget all that. The dates, the names, the places, they hardly matter. What matters is the moral. What matters is the moral. If you got everything else wrong from the Odyssey, but you left understanding the importance of perseverance, the dangers of hubris, the risks of temptation and distraction, then you really learned something. We're not trying to ace or impress teachers. We are reading and studying to live, to be good human beings, always and forever. What matters is the moral. We're not trying to ace tests or impress teachers. We are reading and studying to live, to be good human beings, always and forever. Guys, that's, to me, what the UIL One Act Play Contest is all about. Yes, yes. I hope the experience and the critiques or the adjudication you get help you become much better theater artists. I think that's important. I wish many of you the experiences and sort of great life I've had in the theater. It's a joy. But all of us aren't going into the theater. And those of us in the theater spend a lot of time away from the theater. And all of these plays we've done, all of this experience we've had should add up to helping us become better human beings. Okay? So please, I want you to, create good compositions. I want to be able to hear the students, actors. I want to hear and understand you. I want you to bring your story onto the stage and take it off, whatever that is. I want to understand what's happening at the end of the scenes. But most importantly, and by far the most important thing, I want you to use this training, embrace it, be passionate about it, but embrace those major truths, those themes from each production and take them with you, okay? Hey, this has been great for me. I hope it's been helpful. I appreciate you kind of bearing with my rudimentary technical skills. I'm learning a lot about teaching online, and sometimes it's smoother than others. But anyway, I wish you the best of luck. I know it's challenging times. We're not sure where everything's going as far as live performance, but we can still gain all this information and richness and heart stories from these plays we do, whether they're produced the way that we've done it in the past or not. It's my hope that our paths cross, whatever the next UIL season brings, and please take care of yourselves. Thank you very much.